welcome to Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes,
Ryan Dunigan.
and today we got a special guest here. How about you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Cisco Garcia.
And today we're going to be talking about classic Nintendo games, stuff like Super Nintendo and N64.
Which is how you and Cisco pretty much met, right?
Well, something like that. We go back to about 5 years old, and
Which
Super
I met Cisco back in high school.
Yeah, Spencer and I go back to almost preschool, I think, a long time ago.
Yeah, some pretty far back actually.
Yeah.
And even though like I've had Nintendo in my life, my entire life, I actually grew up as a Sega Genesis kid.
I kind of flipped back and forth because what happened is this is a quick story right here. We we had an original NES, and then it was right when the Super Nintendo came out, and someone my mom worked with, it's like, oh, my kids want the NES, not the Super NES. It's like, oh, we got this, so we just traded. And I remember my brother, he had F-Zero in Mario World, and I remember just falling in love with Mario World, playing that game all the time. That's kind of what got me into video games originally. But then they went and like the lady was just like the dumbest bitch. She said like, "Oh, the kids were stupid because they didn't know what the fuck they wanted." Like, actually, no, we wanted the Super Nintendo. We didn't know this was a Super Nintendo, so they had it the whole time. So we had to trade it back, and that's where we got a Sega Genesis. So my experience with the Super Nintendo was pretty brief.
I was probably the greatest. I was probably the most into the Super Nintendo out of all three of us. I got into Super Nintendo when I was about 6. It was my favorite system. My sister had an NES, and she told me to get a Super Nintendo. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably do that for my birthday, and that's what I got. And probably up until I got an N64, Super Nintendo was about all I played, unless I went over to Spencer's house or somebody else's house. But
Yeah, I originally grew up playing Atari 2600. I had a friend, she had that. And then I had a little portable Space Invaders from 1980 that I had to play. And then eventually, and I think about 1993, I got a Sega Genesis, and that was my first home system. But I would go over to other places or other people's houses and play Super Nintendo and play regular Nintendo. So that's where I got a lot of mine. I didn't actually even get a Super Nintendo until the late 90s.
I'd always play Super Nintendo at a friend's house, so I won't be able to add a whole lot to Super Nintendo because all I really had was just the Genesis after that. And I was not that I didn't like Super Nintendo more. I was always more of a Mario guy at the time. I'm more of a Sonic guy now, but I still do love Mario. And but I remember like, do you guys remember the game Rocko's Modern Life?
Yeah, Cisco
yeah,
had it.
I had that. I had that in the Real Monsters game.
Rocko's Monster game I remember being pretty sick.
And
Yeah.
I like the Beavis and Butthead game, even though I like
Oh,
it
yeah.
more on the Sega Genesis version than the Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
but-
there were a couple of games like that. They were always better on the Sega for some reason.
Well,
but-
yeah, well, back then that was the cool thing is you had games and one version on the Super Nintendo and one version on the Sega Genesis, and
Entirely
they weren't the
different.
same one. Yeah, they're even
Yeah.
created by different companies lots of times.
The only exception I'd say that the Super Nintendo had a better one was the Lethal Enforcers game. That game was probably a little bit better on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, because
compared to
really
the
about
NES.
the
compared
only
to
thing
the,
cool in the
Genesis.
Sega Genesis version is there was like a little bit of blood in it. That was kind of
Yeah.
what Sega Genesis always
That's the
did.
one
They
thing
always
you got-
gave you blood.
That's
Yeah.
the one thing I got a little gypped out of Super Nintendo was no blood really.
Well,
they
only
They really had to force
in
it
Mortal
into
Kombat
2.
1.
Wasn't Mortal Kombat 2?
No, Mortal Kombat 2, they realized they made a mistake
Yeah.
after Mortal Kombat 1.
Kids like this blood shit.
They're like, well, people went over to the Sega Genesis real quick once you take away blood.
Exactly.
But even in Sega Genesis, you had to put a code in to get the blood in it. It didn't start out that way. They
They
still
did
kind of
really?
yeah,
I
they
got
still
a quick
hid it from
question
you.
because you guys
Yeah.
are always Mortal Kombat fans. There's no blood in the Super Nintendo one, the stage where you get punched off like a ledge on his spikes. Was there something else down there? Was there just like pillows or rabbits in the Super Nintendo version? Or what was it?
Gosh, I can't
So
remember.
there-
I think
I
it was
just
the
know that you
same.
Just get impaled and no blood.
I just
or-
remember
Well,
the-
when you punch people, it looks like sweat's coming out.
Yeah,
or-
it was like some kind of like blue substance, like I don't know, like alien juice or something. I
I think it
forgot.
was like kind of brownish. 'Cause I don't know. Like they try to pass it off as like, oh, they're sweating.
Well,
Yeah.
when you land
Yeah,
down
I
on
know
the
what you're talking
spikes,
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just wondering.
That is a good question. I don't remember what that
they
was
always
on that.
they always
That's
had
gonna
ways
keep
to
me up at
hide
night.
it. Yeah, that was a great game.
Well, Cisco, I got a question for you. If you
Yeah.
had to choose one and one only Super Nintendo game as your ultimate favorite, what does it got to be?
That's an easy question. By far, the best Super Nintendo game in the world has to be Super Mario RPG. Probably one of the best games of all time, to be
Oh, I
honest with
definitely agree. That one is top 5 for sure, if not top 3.
So that's your answer for that one, Spencer.
Super Mario RPG. Actually, my favorite one for Super Nintendo is Chrono Trigger. That is my
you. That's
ultimate
another great one.
favorite game. But Super Mario RPG is actually the second one right after that.
Yeah,
Very close.
Mario RPG was one of those games that when I was playing that, I used to rent it all the time, and I just thought, everyone knows what this game is. It's a great game. Well, I play it. I'm sure everyone plays it, but nobody really did. You know?
No.
One of them sitting in this room.
Exactly. But now you think about it, and it's great because it's a little bit of a hidden treasure. I mean, it's a great game, and it's a little bit more well known nowadays, but it's still pretty hidden. I mean, Paper Mario's out there, and that's maybe made a little bit more for the younger crowd, though older Nintendo fans still play it. But Mario RPG is one of those games that you play it and you're like, wow, this is great today. I'm 23 years old and play this game, and it feels like I was 6 years old again playing this game, and I can play it over and over and over and over again. I don't know what it is, but
Well, they had the classic. The thing about that game is so cool is it was made by Nintendo and Square,
yeah,
which was the ultimate combination. And they made it, it was an RPG, but
Which Square had no hand in Paper Mario, correct?
no, that's
No,
all
they did not,
Nintendo.
yeah,
And
all
the
Nintendo.
thing I like about Nintendo Power had a good ending conclusion to their review on Super Mario RPG. They said that an RPG is almost like a misleading term because the game's like a platform action RPG and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you could do so many things in that game.
exactly. That was one of those games that you play it and you're thinking to yourself, wait, is this a Mario game? Like, it doesn't feel like a Mario game, but then you realize, wait, you're playing as Mario. What is this? It's just amazing. A role playing game, and that was even before I was into Final Fantasy and all those other wonderful RPGs. And that was probably my first introduction to a role playing game. And talk about a great one. I mean, Super Mario RPG. I don't know how many of you out there have played that game, but if you haven't, please at least download it. It's available on the Wii now. You can get it, but it's a great game, great hidden treasure. Love it.
I'd say probably my favorite. Like, I'm sorry to be in this room
I
right now.
guess we should have asked you your favorite. Nobody
Sorry,
asked
Ryan,
you.
go ahead,
No,
Ryan.
I was trying I got something to say too. I'm not trying to be
Yeah,
that
you
guy.
fucking Sonic fan now.
Get the fuck out of here with your Sonic shirt. No, it was actually I always wanted to play Super Mario RPG. I never, like I said, my experience with Super Nintendo was very brief but very amazing because Super Mario World is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and that's the one game I played when we had that. Now, granted, we rent, when you're that age, you rent a lot of games. I remember playing Mario Kart, loving that.
Yeah.
Rocco's Modern Life, like we said earlier. Which that game was, I remember that game being hard. Maybe I went back and played it now, not too hard. But Mario World was probably, I think, one of the biggest jumps I ever made. It was one of the biggest jumps at that time for me.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the games that I really remember, because I had a friend named Liz, and she had a Super Nintendo, and she had about 15 games or so, and these were the big games she had. It was Super Mario World, Contra 3, Street Fighter 2.
Oh, that's
She had the Lethal Weapon game. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
This is back in time
Super
when-
Mario All Stars was really big.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
1,
Donkey Kong
2,
Country.
Let me butt in for a second. Donkey Kong Country. I have this game in my hand right now. This is the first video game I ever owned. I still have it today.
Didn't you get the
Great
Super
time.
Nintendo that came with it? It was a
I
package
did.
bundle.
I got the Donkey Kong Country Super Nintendo. I think I had that box somewhere hidden still, but I had this game. It still works great today. Good old Nintendo technology. I hope it didn't break it right there, but it's still working today. Great game. Another, I look at this game and it brings tears to my eyes because it's an amazing game, and it's still like my first offspring of video games. If that makes any sense. I gave birth to this video game, and I still play it today, and I still love it
That
today.
gave me a very disturbing image, but
You know what?
it's powerful.
Donkey Kong Country. I can say that because it's an amazing game.
Donkey Kong's always a powerful game. Sometimes you'll ask people, and they're like, "Well, I don't really play video games," but there was a really good one back then, and it was Donkey Kong Country, and it's like they always bring that one up, and
Yeah.
fantastic game. Even though Shigeru Miyamoto thought it was made for dumb Americans,
Hey, you know what? We
Whoever
loved it.
sells though.
but I guess us Americans are kind of dumb. We like monkeys.
Yeah. We didn't come from them, though. I mean, come on, we're a good old-fashioned Christian believer. We didn't come from goddamn monkeys.
Yeah,
I like my monkeys.
that's such a great game.
There's one little misleading thing, not so much on the first one, but just on that
second
series
one?
in general. 2 and 3. 2, it's like, okay, you're playing as Diddy and Trixie, right?
No, it's Dixie.
Dixie.
Trixie was the one in 64, right?
Yeah.
You're playing as Dixie and Diddy. He's like, okay, whatever. Donkey Kong can't be in this one. Then the third one, it's still called Donkey Kong Country. You don't play as Donkey Kong or Diddy.
You
Play
play
as
as
Dixie
Kitty
and Kitty.
Kitty,
Which
yeah.
he looks like the special ed version of all like
he basically was.
That's one of those ones they could have just made that DK and.
I don't know if any of you either remember the commercials for that game, but the commercials for Donkey Kong Country 2 were pretty cool. It was the, like the
that whole pirate theme
dun, 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 like the old 70s like dun, 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 dun. That was the the commercial for the second one. But the third one, I think it was bad to the bone. And all I remember, it was like this Planet of the Apes moment. It's like this guy driving down the street, this back road in Nevada or something, on a motorcycle, and he looks like the Planet of the Apes on the motorcycle, from the 2001 whatever that Planet of the Apes Tim Burton movie. He's driving down the road. Me too. He's driving down the road with this helmet on, with a mohawk, and he's just driving down, looking all badass, having bad bone playing with his glasses, and he passes some like hot monkey chick, and I'm thinking, okay, is this supposed to be Kitty? Kitty's kind of a faggot, but you've got Trixie, this sexy Kong thing, I guess, like
Talking about Trixie or Dixie?
whatever, Dixie, whatever the fucking chick's name, the second one, and then you got this guy on a motorcycle riding. So what does this have to do with the third game? Granted, the third game is a great game, but the commercial I'll never forget that commercial. It just made no sense at all.
Well, I got a quick question. I want to iron this out real quick. There was Donkey Kong's girlfriend, which they're trying to sell for the sex appeal one, and then there was the one you played as in Donkey Kong 64, which was like Dixie's sister. Which one? What was their names? I'm getting them confused. Dixie, Trixie.
In 64?
In 64 is Trixie, and Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 it's Dixie.
Yeah.
And the girlfriend, his girlfriend, it's something else, or
The girlfriend's name was Candy.
Candy. Okay.
Yeah, Dixie was Diddy's girlfriend.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic game. You know what's another good game I liked a lot in this one? It doesn't seem as amazing probably now as it did back then, but F-Zero was a really cool racing game.
Yeah.
I mean, the futuristic setting. It was one of those first games that had the graphics, they gave you that 3D feel even though it's only like 2D.
Mm-hmm. And kudos to anybody who knew about that game before Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I knew of it. I never played it, but I knew of it.
I played it from time to time. I didn't play it
I watched
as
my
much as
brother
Spencer
play
did.
it all the time.
Well, lots of times you could play that game. They used to have these things. It was a Super Nintendo arcade unit, and they'd have like 3, maybe 5 Super Nintendo games on it. Well, most time it was Super Mario World, F-Zero, and then some other random N64 game, Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
And you'd have little controls, but they base it on time. You're playing the actual Super Nintendo game, but your quarter would last you for like 3 minutes or something like that. That's how it worked. It wasn't like an arcade style version.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, let me talk about another game that's like one of my personal favorites, Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo.
There's
There's a couple of them.
There's
There's
a
a
I
couple
knew the
of great
Sega
ones.
Genesis one. I don't know the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah, Rampage. You're talking about Rampage Edition or the regular Jurassic
The
Park?
side-scrolling one you can play as Grant or the Raptor.
Yeah, that was the regular one.
Every Jurassic Park game at that time
Actually,
was great.
Rampage 2.
There's like
That was
5
so
of
fun.
them, and all of them are good. Both the Sega Genesis ones, both
Yeah.
the Super Nintendo ones, and then also the regular Nintendo ones are a really cool game for a regular Nintendo game.
Yeah, let me just say this: they really knew how to make movie video games back then. I
They
don't think
did.
they're up to par nowadays, but
We
nowadays,
can't really look forward to a movie video game now. Back
No, you
then,
can't.
It's like if there's a movie you liked, you couldn't wait to get the game. Now
and
it's
they
like,
were great.
Well,
Yeah.
they make great adaptation games of anything. I mean, you take Maximum Carnage, Spider-Man, that was an
Oh, I know.
awesome game.
Yeah.
I mean, True Lies, that was a fantastic game.
Extremely hard game.
Yeah, hard. And then you got all the Terminator 2 games were great.
Yeah.
They just made fantastic movie games back then. Except they made the last action hero game that's like extremely hard.
Oh,
One of the hardest games I've ever played.
Oh my goodness. That game, and going back to Jurassic Park, another really hard game. I remember this one story. Spencer and I were playing that game at his house one time, and we were thinking, okay, this is such a great game. It's so fun, but we never really got that far in the game, which is kind of like you play it a little bit. It's really scary, even though it's just looking top-down view because you never know when a raptor's going to pop out in that game. If any of you have played that game, you know that it has creepy music. You don't know really where to go because it's a huge map. And back in the day, that was a strange thing, that huge map. But you're playing this game, and you're thinking, God, this is going to take forever. So back to my story, we were playing this game, and we must have played it for, 12 hours, Spence?
Oh, we
Oh,
played
I
it
know this
all
story. Go on,
night
go
long.
on.
Because that game, you couldn't save. There was no password system. So to beat the game, you had to literally sit
Yeah.
from A to B to the end, and however long that took you.
Yeah, you got to get all the eggs, all the ID cards to get into the sacred areas. You got to get off the boat. Now, we got to as far as the raptor hatch, I believe, the raptor sanctuary,
Mhm.
and had to poison the eggs. And then from that point, we're like, let's just go to sleep. This is ridiculous.
There was no one
But we
like-
did keep it on. We did keep the system on overnight because we're like, you know what? We can't leave this right now.
Our score rolled over. That's how long we were playing for.
Exactly.
Well, maybe this is a different story. Wasn't the one where you guys were playing like all night, and you're like, we're this close, and right before it saved, right before you're just about done, the power went out or something like that. Wasn't
No,
there
that
a
happened on Mario Party.
Yeah, that happened on Mario
Mario
Party.
Party.
Yeah, which we'll get to.
We played
yeah.
like the
We'll get to that bit. Okay.
We'll talk about that story in a bit.
Yeah, and the second Jurassic Park game, The Chaos Continues. That was an awesome game too.
Oh, that's one of the. I recommend that as top 5, probably
Yeah.
the best one.
That's more of a platform shooter.
And the
Yeah.
best part about that game, it was co-op because all the Jurassic Park games I came from before weren't co-op. The second I played Chaos Continues, co-op was a big thing back then because there wasn't actually a whole lot of games that were co-op. You either played single player or versus.
Yep.
Co-op was very rare.
That
But
was
it uses that kind of Contra style. And, that one's fantastic. Extremely hard once again.
all very difficult. The thing that was interesting about that game is you had two different weapon sets. You had a weapon set for shooting humans and raptor and dinosaurs for that matter.
Well, you had like ammunition
You had
style, and then you had like tranquilizers, electricity.
Yes, when one for dinosaurs. So I remember when I first played that game, I was using the tranquilizers, like, oh, this is great. But then I try to shoot a human. I'm like, why am I shooting a rocket at a human and he's not dying? The hell's going on? Oh, it's made for dinosaurs. I get it. That bothered me a little bit, but it was still kind of a unique thing. I'll give them kudos for trying something new with that.
You know those other really cool games though were the Mega Man X ones, all three of them.
Oh yeah.
Those ones,
The ones I played were being ridiculously hard.
they were hard, but I actually think they're easier than Mega Man 1 through 6 on regular Nintendo. But well, the Mega Man, I always call it the Mega Man effect, is that the game is not that hard for the first 8 levels, but the second you get to the last level, the difficulty is increased.
Jump, slide, jump, run, jump, slide, jump. Ah! Yeah,
like,
crazy.
Every Mega Man's like that. It's not really the hardest game, but the second you get to the last level, the difficulty increases so high.
Yeah, and the thing that was great about the Mega Man series for the Super Nintendo is the graphic detail was incredible for those games. The music was
Music was
amazing.
Like every song, it's like
best
iconic.
music and graphics. I love it, and great gameplay, of course.
Mm-hmm. All three of those were really cool.
How about you, Ryan? What's another one you remember that was awesome?
From Super Nintendo,
Yes.
I'm really gonna have to dig here. Like I said, we had it very briefly, rented a few games. The two games we always had, had while we had it, was F-Zero and Super Mario World. So I remember loving Mario Kart. This could just be like very generic. Like, what's your rock band? Led Zeppelin. Just very like cliche answers. But Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart. I remember liking Aladdin.
Oh yeah, Aladdin.
The Aladdin made by Capcom, very good game.
Yeah, that was another one of those games had a completely different version for the Sega Genesis.
When we got the Genesis one, we actually got a Genesis, and that one was really fun too.
Yeah, I like them both a lot.
It's
kind of hard to tell which one's the best one.
Because they're so different.
Yeah, I grew up on the Super Nintendo one. Yeah, I got a story about that game too. One time, involving Spencer and I. We were in San Francisco one time, walking around. I think it was Chinatown, and we were trying to find this like a video game store. We were like 12 or something like that, and we found this store that sold old Super Nintendo games. And this point, we were really trying to collect like vintage, well refurbished Super Nintendo games, which we still are today, but even more then. And we found this copy of Aladdin that was still in a box.
Sealed, I think.
It was sealed, but the thing about the sealed, it was saran wrap sealed.
Yeah, it was
so the guy tried to sell
it. $50
Stupid
price
white
tag
boy.
on it.
Yeah, he had
Stupid white boy will buy it.
exactly. He had like a $50 price tag on this, and like I looked at him like, oh, cool, Aladdin sealed, and then I realized it was like saran wrap. I'm like, oh no, thanks.
He tried to drop the price.
$40, no, $30, $25. Like, no, thank you.
Let's get away.
Yeah, great. Oh gosh. Aladdin, that was a great game. I think I got that for my Christmas of '97, and I beat that Christmas Eve over and over again, twice with my cousin. I loved that game.
See, they made really good Disney games back then too.
Yes, they did.
Like, did you ever play? I guess actually this is for Sega Genesis. I don't know why I'm pulling it up. But Toy Story.
Yeah, Toy Story.
That level you play is RC. That level was so hard.
Now, Toy Story is one of the few games
that
it's the exact same game for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. There's nothing different in them.
I remember that.
One of the few back in that time.
Yeah.
Because that was right before they jumped to N64.
See, that game I was playing that game just the other day, and that game, you don't get like continues or anything in that game. You die, that's it.
Yeah.
You get like 2 lives and call it a day.
And then you're done. Gosh.
You're like halfway through that game and then die. It's like, oh, I guess I don't get continues. Well, never mind. I'm not playing this now.
That was hard. Another hidden gem game I've got to talk about, of course, one of our favorites, Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Now that one, I got that for Sega Genesis. Now that game's actually not really that much different. There's more blood in the Genesis version than the Super Nintendo one, but that's it. Other than that, the game's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But I grew up playing that game like no other.
Incredible game. It's so fun. I hope people that are listening to this right now have played that game.
It is one of the coolest games ever. It really just takes the biggest like mixed match of all horror / sci-fi kind of like old-fashioned kind of like 50s, 60s style, but even captures even like 80s and 70s slashers.
Yeah, you go from Creature from the Black Lagoon to Jason.
To little dolls like Chucky.
Yeah, to Chucky, yeah.
Zombies.
There's mummies.
There's the vampires.
Hey, there's even George Lucas in one level.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Wait, George. Explain George Lucas.
It's in the credits.
It's a LucasArts game. So.
Oh, okay.
It's a LucasArts / Konami game.
Yeah.
That's a franchise LucasArts should really pick back up.
Which is kind of sad. They actually made a sequel to that game.
It was called something else, wasn't it?
It was called Ghoulies, something like. What was it called? Man, I'm drawing
I
a
don't
blank.
remember that one actually.
It was only for Super Nintendo. It wasn't for Sega Genesis, but it wasn't made by Konami and LucasArts. It was just made by LucasArts.
That's something I gotta look up.
So you can actually get it on the Wii. You can download it on there. I'm just totally.
Okay.
I didn't find out about that game until it came out on the Wii because I just looked like that looks kind of like Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Another game that I'm thinking about. That's another movie game. That's an excellent game. Very fun. Very great graphic detail. Great gameplay is Hook.
Oh, the Hook game and the music's awesome too.
Yeah, that game that was for both systems, I believe, as well.
That was for everything.
Yeah.
You get it for the Sega CD, and that was probably the coolest one because it had like the full orchestra from like the movie soundtrack.
Yes, it did. That was another good one.
That
A lot
was
of great ones. There's Hook. There's Indiana Jones.
The
My
Indiana
goodness.
Jones
Those
Greatest
ones are really
Adventures.
hard. I played that.
Greatest
Yeah.
Adventures.
You raised
Yeah.
that one time.
I still haven't beaten that game. I mean, I've gotten as far as Cairo in the second movie.
I got to the very end of the game, and I just couldn't beat the last boss.
Yeah. Oh,
And then all the Star Wars games that were made in that kind of same engine.
Oh yeah, the Star Wars games.
All
yeah.
the Super Star Wars.
Yeah, those are all really
Games
hard
are really
games.
hard, but totally fun.
I got so frustrated with those games. I remember throwing my controller so many times trying to beat those games. The first one especially. I played that one so many times to know.
It's a real love-hate
Oh, yeah.
relationship with that one.
Definitely a love-hate relationship. More of a hate relationship sometimes.
Yeah, those kind of games, you love them, but then there's just
Girlfriend
this,
you
like,
hate, but the sex
evil
is really awesome.
like
Yeah,
hate
yeah,
involved in
great,
it.
Great analogy.
You know, but you know what's one of the most classic ones
What's
is
that?
Zelda. Zelda 3.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Link to the Past. Just one of my favorite ones.
Here's the part where I just put my head down in shame.
Yeah, he's the walk of shame here. He hasn't even touched the game.
Oh,
And it's just
Oh,
that
God.
one's like it's top
Saying
3
Cisco reaching
favorite
for like an
Zeldas.
eject button.
you're gone. Yeah, that was an excellent game. I played that game quite a bit.
No, I beat it like a couple times on Super Nintendo. Beat it
Yeah.
on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I own it for. But
That was a good one. Another hidden gem game that I know I keep talking about movie games. You people out there, this guy only likes movie games,
This is
but
the
I
time
know,
when they were really good.
but they were great
they were
games.
awesome back then.
I'm thinking about this game. It's excellent. It was Home Alone.
Oh.
I know it sounds stupid,
No, that game
but
was-
that game
the
is
music
amazing.
Was awesome in it too.
The music was amazing. It was a great gameplay, great gameplay, and I remember actually when I beat that game for the first time. Spencer and I were in college, and we were in our dorm room playing that game, and nobody understood it except for probably me and Spencer. But I played that game. Did you play that game a lot back?
I
then?
played it a bit. I played it at your house, so I didn't own it myself.
That game. I remember playing it, and finally, like, I don't think it was very hard. I just got tired of it after a while. As a kid, I had more interesting things to do. But now in college, I had nothing else to do because classes were easy. But basically, I was playing Home Alone, and finally, I beat that game, and I like cheered and jumped for joy and screamed like, "Oh my God! I just beat Home Alone for the Super Nintendo! Ah!" And like everyone's like, "What? What the hell's going on?" I'm like, "It's Home Alone, dude. You don't understand. It's Home Alone for the Super Nintendo. It's a game I've had my entire life and I
Now,
haven't
if
beaten."
I only played that game like twice, and I was at a friend's house. And if I remember correctly, you had to go in certain parts of the house, collect shit.
Get all your shit
Yes.
that was
So
stolen.
this
You gotta
this
steal-
totally
yeah.
this is totally a symbol of the '90s. Bunch of like people broke into my house. This rich house that 20 people live in to steal all my shit. I gotta hide it.
Hey, I gotta
That's what
hide it.
I gotta hide all my
Throw
shit.
it in the basement. Exactly, you know.
Yeah.
And then you had the weirdest enemies. Some enemies that you don't know where the hell they come
They
from
were-
because you
they-
got
they
Harry
just-
and Marv,
didn't they just
obviously.
rehash Harry and Marv.
They
throughout
had-
the
no,
whole
but
movie?
they had like
random,
odd
odd job.
Odd
looking-
job guy. I'm like, what the heck's Odd Job doing in there? This is
Did
007.
he threw his hat and all?
Yeah, he did throw his hat.
That's awesome.
It was weird. And then there's a couple other like weird characters that I don't even know where they came from, but
The
Was
best part
Jason in
though.
there too? You know?
not
You
Jason.
know Jason Voorhees.
Oh,
The
go-
best part though in the game though is when you die in the game, it just cuts
I
to
remember this.
like a pixelated picture of Macaulay Culkin's face with his hands on his cheeks going, but it's all staticky, so it's like, oh!
Ah! Like with like the rape face, you know, like this child's just been raped by a
But it's
monkey
just
or
funny
something.
because like you hear it come out of the Super Nintendo, and it kind of comes out
This is the brother- this
staticky.
is-
Yeah.
Slowly coming, just like just almost make you jump.
No, it kind of comes up kind of like a Michael Jackson Moonwalker on
Yeah.
Sega Genesis, where it's just like, woo!
Yeah,
The further you got in that game, the longer the woo was, right?
Yeah, the longer
yeah,
you
there
did,
was.
It was like it started out
just
just like real quickly in that. It was kind of like in the Super Nintendo times, sound. You got music and sound effects, but whenever you would hear actually like voices and stuff, I
It
remember
blew your fucking mind.
first
Oh,
time
yeah.
playing Super Metroid, you sit there and like the text is coming up explaining the story, and then all of a sudden there's like a narration. You're like, what the fuck? It talks.
Dude,
No, I remember this isn't Super Nintendo. This is original Nintendo, but still, I was surprised at having this. When you played Ninja Turtles for the very first time,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's like, it's like, oh
Bury my
God.
shell at Wounded Knee.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of like I remember in the
That
Dirty
was
Harry
good.
game. It was like
Suez
"Go ahead,
7.
make my day, and they had this that
It's
line. It was
all
all
pixelated.
staticky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got.
But Ninja Turtles. Speaking of Ninja Turtles, one of the best Ninja
Oh
Turtle
yeah,
game of all time.
Turtles in Time.
And this one's an interesting
Yeah.
one too because it's better than the arcade version. The Super Nintendo one is.
My favorite turtle soup.
Oh yeah, great game.
And that one, Turtles in Time, is just amazing. Classic, beat 'em up. The only thing that kind of sucks is I remember when I was a kid, you're like, they made like the multiplayer 4-player thing, but you really like, you're a kid, you just assume like, oh, I can play Ninja Turtles 4 players, or I can play all these games in the arcade that are 4 players, and then you get in, you're like, no, that only actually works for sports games.
Yeah, but not for that because you don't have enough slots.
That was a great one. You know what's actually one of the other best games we used to play more than like almost any other game? Sunset Riders.
Oh, I was just gonna bring that
Oh,
up.
that game was awesome.
I was gonna bring that up when we cut
love
off the
Sunset
voices. Yeah,
And the
Riders.
thing about
Sunset Riders. Yeah.
Really, in life, there's almost like only 10 cowboy games ever made. I mean, cowboy games still, even to this day,
Yeah, they're
like,
hard to find.
you get like
Yeah.
one
We talk about Red Dead Redemption, but it all started with Sunset Riders.
Exactly.
I actually started a game called Gunsmoke on regular Nintendo. That was a big one for me.
Yeah. No, that was that off the TV show? Was that Gunsmoke off the TV show?
You know, it was called Gunsmoke. Who knows? Back in those
Yeah.
days, you didn't really know. It was just that one was kind of played like a space shooter game. You constantly went forward and you shot left, right, forward, and just killed things along the way and picked up power ups.
Yeah, Sunset Riders though was one of those games that had so many great lines.
Oh, yes, fantastic.
Some of the funniest
Wasn't it
dialogue
like
ever.
just like draw Pilgrim or something like that?
Brawl. There was that guy. Then there was like the first boss, like he was this big
the best
fat
line.
guy that you had to shoot like these TNT barrels. He was being protected
He was
by
like
barrels.
he was like a big Republican guy shooting
Well,
down.
he looked like Dick Cheney basically,
Okay,
like in
yeah.
a cowboy suit, mixed with Rush Limbaugh.
And here's the best line.
Yeah.
You know, bury me with my money.
Yeah.
And there's a pause and it just made me laugh.
Yeah, the pause was great.
But no. You know what was one of the best ones? Is when you beat what's his name?
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah,
when you beat the
and then the girl comes out of the saloon.
Yeah. When you beat the guy on the horse, the ironclad horse.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah, he's on the horse, and if depending like it's the same voice for the main character cowboys, but then if you're playing as Cormando,
Yeah, whoever kills the guy gets this little cutscene. Basically, is what he's saying.
and you want to explain the Cormando
Yeah,
parts, right?
it depends what you are, because you usually like if you think the character name was Billy or Steve, you hear less like
The widest names.
you hear this like, oh, that's terrible, man. Please help.
All right, ma'am.
Don't worry about it. But you hear that same voice if you're Cormano, who's like the Mexican character. Like, I don't see a
Poncho and a
Mexican
shotgun.
like, all right, ma'am.
Yep.
Don't worry about it. Hasta la vista, baby. Like, I don't think he really talked like that. But
that was like the retired guy at the end. He was like, hasta la bye.
oh yeah, hasta la bye bye.
And then you put like this thing of dynamite next to his head and blow it up so you can go through the wall.
But then his head's still intact after the dynamite. Yeah, I remember like for some reason the Super Nintendo trying to be all PC, I guess, except for the RPG. The Sega Genesis version was different. You didn't have any women in that game except for that woman that you killed, except for in the Sega Genesis and the arcade version.
And the
of that
second
game.
thing-
just whores, like just to kill, or were
No,
they
they're just like they're female
Like
cowboys.
female cowboys
Female
that tried to.
cowboys,
No,
okay.
this is the thing they took out the Super Nintendo one too. That was in the arcade and the
Trying
Sega
to think.
Genesis one. Is when you went inside like a saloon, you got like a power up,
Mhm.
and in the arcade and Sega Genesis ones, you come out with like a whore on you.
Yeah, I remember
The
that.
Super Nintendo one, you just come
Grand
out.
Theft Auto 3.
You just come out with like a boner, and that's it.
Yeah. The one thing I've got to say that before we end this topic on Sunset Riders though is about the halfway point through the game, right after that cutscene, actually, there's a boss where you're fighting these two kind of like twin brothers. One has like a candle that he throws at you. One has an explosive bomb. After you kill that, you get this cutscene where these like pixelated hurdy-gurdy girls come out and do like this little dance for you, and you're like cheering them on. There's music going on. That always cracked me and Spencer because we were watching this, and these dancers like looked like a really pixelated version of our like high school Spanish teacher, Mrs. Encinas. Great lady, Mrs. Encinas, by the way. Great teacher. Well, yeah, she's a great teacher, but had a lot of stories.
She's listening right now.
Yeah, of course she's not listening, but whatever. I still gotta say she's a great teacher. But it was funny because you were like, what the hell is like this? Like pixelated looks like Miss Encinas like dancing around. That's nothing. Some of you guys won't get, but it just makes us laugh. So we're selling it to you. Anyway.
You know, it was another really cool game that it didn't come out in actually the U.S. But I remember we used to play like we had the French copy of it was Sailor Moon.
Oh God, yeah, Sailor Moon.
And it was
Great
another
game.
one of those beat 'em up games like
And the
Ninja Turtles, but Just like the characters like were in it just look so funny because it just looked like a bunch of girls walking around, a bunch of like perverts coming up and wanting to like
Rapists.
grab ass.
I remember like
this-
purposely pausing the game.
Well, there was like this
with-
guy who had like the big eyes. I don't remember from the show. I mean, if he was in it, I don't remember it. But like,
he looked
he
like
would
a
come up and
troll.
and his hand when he went to like hit you was like all low.
like trying to get like a palm or
little
something.
like cross grab.
Like a cross grab. I remember one shot was like, I think Spanish was like Sailor Mars, and she was like in the air, like doing a flip. It looked like she was like almost like bent over in the air, and the guy had his arm out like, "Arr!" And this is like a troll-looking thing, by the way.
Yeah.
It looks like,
This-
you know what he looked like from where the wild things are. It looked like one of those little trolls.
That's what he looked
That's exactly what he looked like. A little bit
Do you
smaller.
find like a villain named Mr. Fister or something, or what?
like. Surprised you do. The game was all in French.
Oh god.
That one probably never came over here, did it? That was,
No,
it was
we
a French copy,
we played
right?
the French copy of it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Now the Sailor Moon RPG did come over here, and I played that one a bit.
Oh yeah.
And you know, it was another cool one. This back in the day when like you're a kid and you're like this fucking determined, but there was all these anime games that never made it to the U.S.
Like
'cause
Dragon Ball Z RPG.
well, there was a ton of Dragon Ball Z games for it.
Mhm.
But when I was a kid, I actually beat the Tenchi Muyo and the Dragon Ball Z RPG game. It was all in Japanese. And a kid, you almost learn it like a caveman discovering like language for the first time. You just start to
This
know what
weird
each
symbol means yes.
Yeah. And like almost like nowadays, like why would I even? I would never do that. I would play it for about all of 10 seconds, but like no, it's in Japanese. I'm not going any farther.
No,
This
yep.
sounds like work. But
Oh,
those
yeah.
two games were so cool. If they make I would love to see them actually bring that Tenchi Muyo game. I mean, people probably don't remember Tenchi Muyo as the show anymore.
I
Of course
remember that
we
show.
don't. I hope you guys do.
I had one of the movies.
But that RPG was so cool. It kind of played sort of like a tactics ogre kind of game, Final Fantasy Tactics style.
Yeah.
It was pretty darn cool. And then the Dragon Ball Z, but then you also had these Dragon Ball Z fighting games for it.
Mm-hmm.
Those were all really cool, especially for the time. And I also like to say Genesis one because you could actually play as Krillin in that one.
Yeah.
One of the few games since Budokai actually play Krillin.
Yeah, you could have played as Krillin until like way later.
Like, what the fuck do you want to play as the balding human?
Yeah.
Krillin was always one of my
It
favorite
was always
characters,
like
but-
it was all the Super Saiyans and then a couple villains. That's what it always was. Maybe a couple androids and Cell.
Wasn't there one where you actually play as what's his name? Hachi? No, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. Bulma's boyfriend dies. Hachi or Yamcha?
Yamcha, yeah.
Wasn't
No, not only in the Dragon Ball game. Well, actually, no, because the Dragon Ball ones, there was like RPGs for that too on Super Nintendo. And you just played as Goku, I think, the whole time.
Can't believe I drew a blank on a Dragon Ball Z character's name.
Getting back to Super Nintendo, also, another thing we got to talk about with Super Nintendo, though, something that I hope everyone has at least experienced it at some point, is the Game Genie.
Oh man, the Game Genie
The
was
game-
such a.
Not
I
for
still
the-
use the Game Genie today because you know what? I couldn't accept the Game Genie. I know what. Because back in the day, you couldn't save anywhere. So say if you wanted to play like your favorite level and it was like level 7, and you didn't want to like have to like, hike through the castle to get there, and
Yeah.
have to like hopefully make it to that level, you could actually just warp right to that
You
level.
jump through it, yeah. And
Go ahead, sorry.
And
Oh,
plus, when you're not like, back in the day when you're a kid, sometimes you just want to see the end of the game. And
exactly,
It's just, like,
yeah.
it's just
you
so
can see it
hard to
that
get
way.
through. The Game Genie kind of made that possible. It was such a cool invention.
For those of you who don't know what the Game Genie is, the Game Genie was the way of using codes back in the day. Back in the day,
Well, it was
yeah.
Let me tell you, when we only had
Yeah,
like 8 buttons.
You would plug a Super Nintendo game into this Game Genie and then plug it into your Super Nintendo. Then you had this little booklet that came with the Game Genie, where you'd look up the game, where it would be zombies and my neighbors, and you'd see, okay, unlimited ammunition. You have to put in the main screen 4207 or something like that, and then you would get unlimited ammunition, or skip to level 8.
And you only
do
could put
that, yeah.
5 codes in at a time, I
And
think.
this was a
remember
big
that, yeah.
legal case back in the day, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, the cool thing, this also went with, it was a very 90s thing in a sense, because you had the little booklet, but they also, in the booklet, if you read, they wanted you to try to, like, put your own codes in. So it was a hacking device in a sense. And the 90s hacking is like, and that's what the Game Genie was. It was a hacking thing. You put random buttons in, which I tried a bunch of times. And I never discovered anything, but,
No, but
I
you
just
could-
I just stuck with the book. The books were where it was at.
Yeah,
I
that was
never used the Game Genie for the Super Nintendo because I didn't have it long enough. But we did have a Game Genie for the original NES.
I
used
remember
all
that.
the time.
I had
It
one of those
did-
too.
it didn't-
It was so hard to get the.
Yeah,
It
it
was already
didn't work
hard enough
very
to play
well.
your regular Nintendo, but to
Yeah.
get the game, the Nintendo, and the Game Genie to all work at
Oh,
once
yeah,
was like
it
it was
was
so
impossible.
difficult.
You better play it if you got it on, because yeah, that was hard to do. Something though about the Game Genie that just cracked me up is some of the codes they had were ridiculously funny. Like one of them, I remember for Monopoly, they had a Game Genie was unlimited
Unlimited
money
money.
in Monopoly. Why the hell does anybody want unlimited money in Monopoly? What are you like just playing to like show off? People like, look at me, everybody! I've got unlimited money in Monopoly. I can beat everybody. It's like, oh, good for you. Why don't you go outside and play like another Monopoly player who doesn't have unlimited money? See how long you last.
Well, I remember they had a lot of weird codes for like games like Street Fighter and stuff,
Uh-huh.
where it'd be like it was like Hadokens like move at half speed and things like this. Like, why? Like I don't know.
Just to see the cool graphics.
Yeah, but I guess back in
the
the day, we didn't have, we just had all this time in the world to like spend looking at this.
I guess it was just
games were so short as is.
I guess it was the '90s, so like I can do it. Why not?
Yeah.
Fight the power. I'm not supposed to be hacking it, but I am. You know, that whole kind of thing.
Another game, Yoshi's Island.
That was a great
that
one.
was a hard one for me.
That was a fun one.
It was a great one, but yeah, it was a hard one.
Great music. Probably some of my favorite Mario music in any game.
That even has that's like one of those ones where like you get to see like actual like a drug effect in one of those levels.
Oh
I remember
yeah,
the levels.
it was you had to eat like that cotton ball thing.
No, if you got hit by the cotton balls, it went all like psychedelic and things slowed down. The music got all
just
warpy.
the background in that game already looks like sort of like acid tripish as is.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that says a lot when it's a Mario game.
There's a horrible sound though. Like every single time you get hit by an enemy though, baby Mario falls off your back. And that makes you like you're like, I gotta stop that. It's like an alarm clock going off. So you try as hard as hell to get that baby back.
It was annoying, yeah. But the cool thing about the game is that you had interesting vehicles you could choose from. Certain levels you could make like a tank Yoshi or a plane Yoshi or things like that, which were cool. But yeah, you were basically baby Mario, like going around on Yoshi. You had different colored Yoshis for each level. And if you did die, which was similar to the Yoshi's story in the N64 version, Yoshi got flown away by these what were those things called?
The Shy Guys.
Shy Guys. Yeah, I just remember like this thing like no, don't take my Yoshi away, Mama, don't take it away, please.
Dark and scary when it happened.
It was really dark and scary.
I thought that was in Yoshi's story. Didn't they take Mario away in Yoshi's Island? Is that
you're right.
Mario, not Yoshi.
Yeah, sorry, take that back. But still, you didn't want Yoshi to take.
But it was scary because they show in the
Mario. It's all dark and creepy music.
Yoshi's story, you would see that and just they crash in the castle. You see the castle shake. Like,
You know, it's one of my other favorite games. This is another Japanese import one, but it was the Gundam Wing game. It was a fighting game, and it actually was like the most smoothest fighting game for Super Nintendo. It played better than Street Fighter 2. Just the way it played like a modern like fighting game, but it was on Super Nintendo, and it was so cool. You get to choose between. There was only like, I think there was 2 villains in it. You pretty much play as all the good guys.
Yeah.
What you play is they had I remember the series. They had the 2 robots that were like I guess programmed dolls more or less. There's the red one and there's the blue one. I don't know what they're called, but they just inserted 2 bad guys I think in the place of those characters, even though nobody played them in the show.
Yeah, I never played that game actually.
You didn't play it?
No, I never did.
House?
You know,
You probably
did.
I
remember.
It's just probably been a while.
Possibly, yeah. Brain cells are leaving me.
I remember playing it a lot during like typing class back in high school.
So, yeah, it got popular a lot later once everybody else discovered ROMs and all these Japanese games everybody missed out on.
Yeah. Another game, great classic platform game for the Super Nintendo, Joe and Mac.
Oh, and there was 3 of them too.
There were 3 of them, yeah.
The first one was the best one, but the other ones are still pretty cool too.
Yeah, you were cavemen in prehistoric times, going through different worlds, killing enemies, and every time you killed an enemy, you got a babe, like at the very end of the level. And I remember, like, the ending of that game was very strange because you were, I believe, swallowed by a T-Rex or something, and that was the ending level. And you were going through a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you had to like kill its heart, and then this evil demon was flying around the heart, trying to protect the heart. And like, what is this have anything to do with cavemen?
But you got a hot chick at the end of every level, so
you
really strive to make sure you got more percentage than your buddy.
Exactly. And but I remember a couple times playing that game and being like, remembering, okay, this level you get the green-haired chick, this level you get the blonde-haired chick, or the blonde. I'm like, oh, you can beat this one. You get the fucking ugly green-haired chick.
The red-haired one. Who cares?
Go ahead. This one, I get the blonde. I want to beat this one. Yeah.
Well, I want the blue-haired one.
Yeah, exactly.
Be some good old-fashioned cave pussy.
There you go. Yeah, Wilma.
That was an awesome game, though.
That was a great game. Oh, another great game. The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare.
Ooh, that game's so hard too.
Hard game.
Actually, I should take a step back. I played the Sega Genesis one. I never played the Super Nintendo.
I think the Sega Genesis one was the same version on that one.
So,
I remember that game being extremely hard.
Now that's another one of those games. Going back to like drug influences of video games. That game was weird. When you started dying, granted you were having a dream in the game, but when you started dying, you started seeing some trippy shit. You started seeing like basketballs turn into the founder of Springfield's head. Going around, you started seeing like.
Did you see like Bart as a devil or Mr. Burns as a devil? Something.
Yeah, you saw like a Toad as Mr.
Barney.
No, not Barney.
Mr. Burns?
Not Mr. Burns. God, can't believe. Yes, sir.
Smithers?
Smithers stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, you saw some weird stuff in that game, and they were different. The point of the game was to get Bart to pass his tests in school, and you had to beat these
Through
different
dreams
through
somehow.
dreams, yeah. And you had these different test papers, and each test paper was like a page in an essay, basically.
Before Inception, there was Bart's Nightmare.
Yeah,
Yes.
you went into you went into
The
Bart's-
influence for Inception, Bart's Nightmare for the Super Nintendo. But yeah, you jump into these pages, and you'd have a level where you'd be Bart dude flying around a plane, shooting down a plane with a slingshot, or you'd have a level where you were Bart as Godzilla destroying Tokyo, or
It's possibly what happens when Matt Groening takes acid.
yeah, probably that's what he did. He's probably like, you know what, I had a couple crazy trips, let's make a video game out of it, make $1 million.
Beatles did.
No, yeah, that did a lot to make it. That was a popular game when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know what game we're forgetting about, or actually it's a game series that's some of the best games I can think of too, is the Final Fantasies for it.
Oh yeah, Mystical Quest.
Once
Yeah,
again,
well,
I
there's
put-
Final Fantasy Mystical Quest. I was more thinking of like Final Fantasy 4, 5,
Oh,
and
and
6.
4, 5, 6.
Once again,
yeah.
I put my head down in shame.
Yeah, he's
great
still
game.
missing out on that.
Yeah.
I just never
Now
jumped
the
in on
sixth
arcade
one
games.
was
Sixth
the
one's
third one.
so
Wasn't that the third one?
It was called
Yeah.
number 3 in America.
It was called number 3 in
because
America,
they
it was number
released
6
one on
really, in reality.
Nintendo, then they brought 2 on Super Nintendo, which was 4, and then
Mhm.
3, which was 6. Very confusing to American
Yeah.
audiences. But Final Fantasy 6, I'm just gonna call it 6 because that's really what it is. It make it easier in the long run. But that game was so cool, and that 10 years ago, gaming magazines used to always hail that game as like top 10 or top 10, top 5 best games ever. And you hear almost nothing about that game anymore.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if people have just gone like, the young kids don't. I don't think. Well, young kids nowadays don't think play very many classic games, but
Mhm.
it's
We don't
kind of
play
a
very many
forgotten
RPGs
for
anymore.
as big of a game that was. It's kind of forgotten in the gaming community nowadays. I mean, now people who are hardcore gamers are gonna say, yeah, I remember that game, or anybody who was like 30, 20,
Mhm.
30, they're gonna remember that. But it's kind of been forgotten. It's been overshadowed by Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah. My memory of the game was it was a great game. I remember just it being so hard to find. It's such a rare game, and even back in the day when I wanted to rent it, it was always rented out.
Yeah, it's always right
It
now.
was so expensive. Even nowadays, it's probably like $60 or $70 on eBay. It's just a great game. Now the different characters in the game though, was that one of those games where you got to play as 3 or 4 characters at a time?
That one you
in active
played
time
as
battle.
4 characters at a
4
time.
characters, yeah.
Now, Final Fantasy 4, I remember that was kind of to me, it seemed like such a big feature when I played that one. It was like, there's parts in it where you played as 5 characters at a time. It was like,
Mhm.
because I was used to playing Final Fantasy 7 and 8 first, and I was like, okay, you got 3 characters. Then I was introduced to 4, and then 5, and then later on in life you realize, no, I kind of like 3. Then they all seem to be stronger.
Mhm.
But those ones were just awesome. I love those RPGs. I beat all of those ones.
Yeah.
I beat 5 once, but I beat 4 and 6 a couple times.
Another good series for the both Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo would have to be the Strike games, Desert Strike.
Oh, the
Jungle
Desert Strike,
Urban
and
Strike.
Urban Strike.
Yeah, those were great
All
games.
those games, those are so cool.
Yeah, you go around in a helicopter. In Desert Strike, it was basically Desert Storm. You were going around destroying these nuclear compounds. In Urban Strike, it was what was it?
That one went all over the
DC,
place. You
yeah.
start out in Washington, D.C.
No, that was Jungle Strike. Jungle Strike, you started out in DC.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
That one you started there. Now, the cool thing about that one is then there was you got the other vehicles. You could fly jets in that one.
Yeah, in the Urban Strike, you could. Yeah.
And, I think, was there a tank in it?
You could fly a bomber, I believe.
Yeah, you could fly a stealth bomber, which first time you get in that, you just end up crashing about 3 times in about the first 20 seconds because you were just so used to flying a helicopter this whole time.
Exactly.
No, that was a great. You know what was another great series that kind of reminds me of that? I think just because, I don't know why it reminds me of that, actually, but it's the Road Rash.
Oh, yeah.
Those come out for Super
No,
Nintendo?
they didn't come
I
out
guess
for
it was a
Nintendo,
Sega
but
Genesis
those were.
game.
We'll talk about those too. Those were great games. Yeah, I just remember the funniest thing that they had the funniest names for some of the characters. They were like Roadkill was like a guy's name. Like one of the guys' names was Wesley, so I always thought it was like Wesley Snipes because he was like in jail and he was like a bad guy. So like that's probably what he did, hitting people with chains going down the road. You
I
know?
remember that game when we were kids. That was considered a pretty violent game because you were driving down the road,
Yeah.
punching people, taking chains from people, and then beating people to the
Yeah.
finish line.
I remember like when you hurt somebody in that game, that like the
Was
sound.
this a racing game?
It was a
Or
racing
motorcycle
game. But,
racing
yeah,
game.
yeah.
And then the thing that
But
they
it was
made
like Grand
different
Theft Auto, basically.
is you could punch and kick, and
Yeah.
then you could steal weapons from people, and then you got clubs and chains and
Sounds
riot
kind of like
sticks.
sounds kind of like Akira.
Kinda.
To a
Yeah,
degree. I'm guessing it's more Chopper than Rice Rocket.
No, yeah, it's more like that. It's more like 90s.
Like
Rebel.
I remember
biker
like
kind of
like
thing, right?
when you look in the booklet of it, it just has such a 90s
Yeah.
thing. There's like a guy who's like an insurance fraud guy.
Yeah.
There's a guy who's like, suing people's like what his thing is. Like they had all these like '90s things. They had like punks and
Yeah. But I remember like
Beastie
when you
Boys
hit
looking
people in
guys.
that game, like it was sounded so violent, especially when you knocked them off their bike. They were like, oh! Like you would just hit them with a chain. So granted,
well, then
that...
you get like funny ones where you would kick the guy in front of like an oncoming car.
yeah, and then hit the car. Yeah, and then that was the thing that about the game I remember is being you got pulled over by the cops sometimes.
Yeah, the cops are coming. So that game, you could literally beat the
I'm
shit out of a
surprised
cop.
I'm surprised
Yeah.
this came to
There
Super
was-
Nintendo.
No,
Yeah,
it wasn't on Super Nintendo.
No,
it was on
Sega
Sega
Genesis,
Genesis.
Sega Genesis.
Oh,
I know we're
that's
off topic here, but it's just that was such a cool game series.
Yeah.
The one I played the most is Road Rash 2. For some reason, that was the one I rented all the time.
Another game going back to Super Nintendo. This is a game that probably a lot of you there probably never played before, and I don't blame you, but I love it. Is the Bassmaster Classic game. That
You
was
used to play so
I know
many
it's
hours of that one.
it's a fishing game. People, a lot of people don't like fishing games, but I love
Isn't
them.
there a story to this game?
You're basically it's
No,
you
like
go
a
to
story,
different
a personal
tournaments.
story for you guys. Is there a story involving this game?
I don't think there's a personal story
No, I
about
don't think
Bassmaster.
so.
I think there's just
Well,
like a
maybe the
personal
Dreamcast-
love.
Maybe it was the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
Sega
that
Marine
yeah.
Fishing.
That's for another podcast. But this bass fishing game, you would go around different lakes. Like I think the first lake was Eagle Lake or something like that, and you'd go around and you got to pick your lures and you got to buy them from the store. And back in the day, it was cool, like being able to buy stuff with money, and buy your own rod and go out to the lake, and you'd be down the bottom level of 30 feet down, and you'd be fishing for bass, and you could always tell if it was a big bass if it had a big mouth in that game. And
I think,
again, it's just one of those games that you have to play it to realize how fun it is.
I think one of the things is like that doesn't sound like much nowadays, but I think that was the first, or at least one of the first games to actually show if the camera went underwater when you went down to fish,
Yes.
and you could actually see in there. Because I think before the older fishing games, you just kind of stood there in your boat,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would have to press Y when like something came up.
Oh, I know a cowboy game we're completely forgetting. Wild
Guns.
Wild Guns was an excellent game. That
This
was
is a Natsume game that like
Explain that
was
game.
not Harvest Moon.
that was you take cowboys and you mix it with futuristic
Robots
and things like that.
Oh, all right.
Really cool idea. You got to play as a boy and a girl. You were going around.
It's cool because it's like
Well, was it kind of like Contra? Cause that's...
no.
No,
What it is
it was-
it's like you're on a platform and you can move left and right, and then it's kind of like a shooting game.
Yeah,
But you can
got to
jump
duck,
and dodge out of
duck
the way.
and things like that. And
It's that game is such a cool game
there's
too.
a train level. You're on a train. There's a level you're breaking into like a hideout.
And then you get the cool the dynamite rockets you would set down and shoot up and hit all the and hit it and kill everything on the screen at once.
Yeah.
No, that was speaking of that. If we're gonna say that, then there was the Harvest Moon game. The very first Harvest Moon game came out for Super
Oh yes,
Nintendo.
of course. Harvest Moon started an excellent series.
And
Yeah.
that was actually that was the first Harvest Moon I ever played. Was that one
Yeah.
because that was just something I heard about. I actually when Harvest Moon 64 came out, I heard about that, so I went
Yeah,
and played the Super
I
Nintendo
will
one.
say that I didn't start playing the Super Nintendo when I started with 64, but I came back and played that one. Now that was one of those games that it was a little hard getting into if you started with the 64 one, but I imagine if I had started playing the Super Nintendo one first, I would have loved it more than I do now. That game again is very expensive. It's like $100 now, but that's an excellent game. Very, very rare Super Nintendo games. Something we're completely forgetting about, a mainstream game we haven't talked about yet is
Star
Mar-
Fox?
Oh, well, let's
Star
go there. Star
Fox,
Fox.
yeah.
Let's talk about Star Fox.
That
Yeah.
one, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that game,
Masterpiece.
yeah, people don't really think of that game till the 64 one, but the Super Nintendo one really started, that game, like, that was back in the day when you'd play a game that was all polygons, and you'd think it's totally real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the first 3D
I
or
remember
whatever
I
game.
remember being
Yeah,
blown away when I first played that game.
yeah, they
I got
just
blown away more when I played Star Fox 64, but that
Yeah,
one right
which was
there was
an incredible game. Great story, great everything. But what I was going to bring up is Super Mario Kart.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they
doesn't
started
love
with
Mario
Super
Kart.
Nintendo.
That
Excellent.
one I used to play so much, too. Like, me
Mhm.
and my friend Liz would always be playing that game.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I was better at the original then than I am now.
Oh yeah.
I actually like that one's actually
No, I do. I still
I
love
like
the
probably
original.
the N60. Actually, but my favorite one's the DS one.
Oh yeah.
But that one is such a good one. Like you could come back to that game no matter what, and it's still just as good as you
Mhm.
remember it. It's so classic. It's actually got more levels than most of all the newer ones too.
Yeah.
And then they also introduced the battle thing that came right away in it, and that was awesome for the time, even though it was only 2 players. That was the main thing you wish. You're like, if it was only 4 players, it'd be so awesome. And we'll present that later.
Yeah, and that was one of those games that
Nintendo.
you got to play as the turtle. The only game you got to play as the turtle, I believe.
Koopa, yeah.
And then it was changed to
Wario.
Wario. Yeah.
You know what was like? This is a game I have to say is really cool. At least this game was really cool to me, and it was NBA Jam.
Oh yeah. That
Because
was.
that game
Yeah.
took basketball, and yes, but it kind of made it real fun because
Yeah.
you could get the ball on fire, burn the net, But the really cool thing about that game is they had all these codes you could enter to get
Hidden
all these secret
characters,
characters.
yeah.
And you got
Bill Clinton.
yeah, you got
Bill
Bill Clinton,
Clinton.
like Will Smith, the Beastie Boys. You
You know, who doesn't want to play as Bill Clinton going against the Beastie Boys? Seriously.
got like Prince Charles. You got like all these strange people to play as.
Yeah, that was fun. That's what made those games unique.
I can't remember who else you had, but there was a bunch of just strange characters you could get. I really feel like we're missing
This would
something
be-
important.
is
But
there any-
Probably, let's see. We cover Metroid or
Cover Metroid, yeah.
talked about it a little bit. We didn't talk about it very much.
Street Fighter 2, but you brought that up.
I brought up Street Fighter 2. I feel like we're just missing something really important. Oh, you know what?
You didn't talk that much about Chrono Trigger. I know how you love your Chrono Trigger.
Well, it's Chrono Trigger. That's just like I think that's one of the coolest ones. That actually gives a gateway to like PlayStation RPGs because you're gonna have the characters following you around in that one. Well, that's kind of what Square did. They would take like another series that wasn't Final Fantasy and really test out some things with it. I think every company does that. But no, that one I actually just beat that game again on the DS. Wanted to see what the difference was.
Oh, I know a game we didn't talk about yet. Doom.
Oh, damn.
Dude,
Damn.
you go back and play that Super Nintendo one now, and it's almost really hard to play. But back then, that was the copy you had if you didn't have a computer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was cool. I liked, even though I had the 32X versions, the one I played all the time.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I heard something about this. There was like a thing where there's some Christian game, there was some like Christian company that was trying to come out with, they came out with like, they used the engine for Doom. They illegally used the engine for Doom somehow.
So many people did that.
And they it was like you went around collecting sheep or something like that on Noah's Ark.
Fuck.
It was something weird like that. I'm probably
That
getting
is
it a little mixed
strange.
up.
Did it
Yeah.
have the music?
You know,
Like,
I don't know.
this
Like,
game, I
I can
was-
imagine that playing, going
I
down
know
Noah's
something
Ark,
about Doom.
collecting sheep, listening to
I-
like this techno music.
I remember it being something about Christianity and sheep. I don't imagine you're running around shooting sheep. I don't imagine it's that.
I don't think
But
so either.
it was maybe you were shooting like little demon things. I don't remember, but I remember it was an illegal game.
speaking of Doom, though, this actually has nothing to do with Super Nintendo, but there was this game that came out in about 1998 or something like that, and it came in the Chex cereal, and it was called Chex Quest. And what it was like the Doom engine, but you played as a space marine guy who was like the Chex Quest guy, and you went around killing aliens with all these kind of electricity and laser guns, but it played just like Doom. I mean, it was so cool, and almost nobody knows about this game. They were supposed to be
Yeah.
making a second one, and I
It's
remember,
news to me.
and it never came. Yeah, the only person I know that knows this one is Tom Stukett, and we always talk about this game, or Kyle knew about it too, but.
Thomas, you gotta be on the show.
Mm-hmm. But no, Chex was really cool. That just reminded me of Doom. You know what other games I want to talk about though? These are things. This is what I was thinking of. Is the DC and Marvel games that came out.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Maximum Carnage was always my favorite, but the other game I
Mhm.
loved a lot was Captain America and the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
That one was really cool. You got to play as Captain America, Iron Man,
I knew the
Hawkeye.
I knew the Genesis one. That's the one I
I
knew.
think they were the exact same ones.
Really?
That one.
Yeah.
I
Alright.
think it was. I played the Genesis one too.
You play as Vision also,
Yeah, I played as
right?
Vision. I was getting to that. And that one was those ones that had dialogue in that game too, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, where's the laser? Ask the police. Didn't make any fucking sense, but it was awesome. And then
Weren't you fighting human?
No.
Weren't you fighting the human laser on that level?
And then
What's he doing asking for a fucking laser?
the X-Men game for Super Nintendo was really cool. My favorite one's actually the X-Men 2 for Sega Genesis, but the one for Super Nintendo, you played as Gambit, Wolverine, Cyclops, Psylocke, and Beast, I think. I feel like I'm missing
Once
one.
again, I'm at the Genesis right there.
Yeah.
And that one was that was a really cool one. It was a single player game, which kind of sucked. But you go through all the levels, and each character had their own different levels, so you weren't playing the same one twice.
Yeah.
Other cool ones was the Batman Returns game for Super Nintendo. Was really cool. It was a single player beat 'em up game.
I didn't have that one, but I had Batman Forever.
Remember that one
That
being
one was
hard.
hard.
Yeah.
That one
That
was kind of.
was
People always
shit.
kind of give that game kind of shit, but I think for the time that game was actually kind of a cool game.
It was. It
And
was.
also
I'm not
you-
saying anything bad about it. It was just confusing and hard.
No, because you have to solve riddles, and you're like,
You know, when you're 6 years old,
This
you're
is-
like, what is this?
This is the
I
point.
don't
Like,
wanna
I
play
have
this.
to read. I just want to kill shit.
I just want to punch up
Even
these
though Batman
criminals
doesn't
that are
actually
dressed-
kill, but
Yeah.
What other good DC and Marvel games was there? I feel
I
like
remember for this.
missing
I'm
something.
gonna jump off topic just for a quick second. I remember a Genesis game that I loved. It was the DC fighting game.
Oh yeah, they had that.
I don't
one.
remember what it was called, but it was like you just played as most of the main DC heroes, or just the fighting game, and like they were all like turned against each other and all that. So
That was a cool one. I like that one a lot. There was also the Death and Return of Superman game. That wasn't nearly as good as the other ones. But it was kind of cool. They took actually a combo and just turned into a full-on game, and you played through the story.
yeah,
But is there any other kind of games you guys can think of that would be DC?
fast as I can think of.
As far as Super Nintendo goes, that's kind of like
Oh,
yeah.
I know one that's a little bit more of a little bit off, but it's a good one. It was Wario's Woods. I need to play the game.
I
Just
never
throw that
played
in there.
Is
for
that
a
Yeah,
second.
Wario's
like a
Woods.
Tetris game, right?
That was well.
That
it
was
it
the
a
was that
puzzle
the same
like
game as Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, pretty much?
It wasn't the same engine, but it was the same type of machine, same type of game where you're going through like you're going through
No,
different
the
levels
Kirby
and
one's the one I'm thinking of. It's
Yeah,
Kirby's
yeah.
Avalanche is the exact same thing as Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Oh, that's a game we forgot. The Kirby game.
Oh yeah, Kirby's Dream Land.
How did we
Kirby's
forget
Dream
Kirby?
Land. There you
Kirby's
go.
Dream Land 3 was so cool because I played Kirby's Dream Land 1 for Game Boy, and then
Yeah.
the second one, which was like so much better.
Mhm.
But the one for Super Nintendo was just amazing. And then there's also Kirby Superstar, which was kind of this, but had like
Yeah.
you had like 6 or something different kind of modes you could. So like the gameplay was different on each one. That was a cool one too.
Yeah.
See, there's another sweet game.
Yeah. Jumping back really quick to Wario's Woods, though, the reason that game is significant is that introduced Wario.
Wasn't Wario originally
No.
introduced in Mario Land 2 for
Mario
the
Land-
Game Boy?
Yeah.
Or just Mario Land? He was the
That
boss
came
in
around
Mario
about the
Land.
same time in the game.
Oh, it did? All
There
right.
was the Game Boy one, but I remember it came out about the exact same time. So I believe they kind of tried to transcend it and have those who had the Game Boy and those who had the Super Nintendo kind of see it at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I guess it was the first on Super Nintendo. That's where you can say that.
All right.
Yeah. First time on a regular system, I'll say that much.
Which that actually just sounds, now that you know who Wario is, it's like Wario's Woods. It almost sounds kind of like what happens when I go in Wario's Woods. Because Wario isn't exactly the most trustworthy looking guy.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
You know, another good game was the Dr. Mario / Tetris one for Super
Oh
Nintendo.
gosh, yeah. Great.
I love that game.
Yeah.
I like the N64 version a lot because you play 4 players. But
Yeah. Well, so those are great games. So, trying to.
Dr. Mario, see, they had this test at one of the colleges on Tetris where they studied people who played a lot of Tetris, and they said that people who play Tetris a lot started dreaming of blocks in their sleep. I was playing so much Dr. Mario that
Dreaming
I
of
was
pills.
dreaming of pills
I was
falling
too.
in my sleep
no, I
and
was
putting
too.
them
I'm not just
together.
saying that. I was totally dreaming of pills and trying to, and I still do that today. But that's
you guys
what a
never
lot of
created
games.
like Oxycontin or nothing like that, right?
I don't know.
Oh,
As
no.
long as they fit together and they take out like germs or viruses.
That even goes to nowadays with different games like that. Like right now, I'm playing on my phone nonstop, like crack Monopoly. I just got Monopoly on my iPhone, and I've been playing that game over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And now when I go to sleep, I'm like, God, I gotta get this. I gotta buy one of each property. Oh God, I gotta mortgage this so I can buy 2 more houses on this. Oh God, oh my God. Oh God, it's free parking. Oh, okay, good. Community chest. I skipped the hotels. Like I'm just thinking that like in my sleep, like.
You know what? Speaking of that, is these games were really cool back in the day. They seem kind of dumb probably nowadays, but the Clue, the Monopoly, all these
gosh.
board games,
Yes.
which just sounds like the most laziest ass thing ever. It's like I'm just gonna put the Super Nintendo one in, but
Hey, you don't have
it was
you
cool.
have no
and they had
cleanup.
little, like kind of like videos in them.
Yeah.
What other? They
I
had
gotta
some other cool board game ones, but the Clue
Okay,
was the coolest one I think.
Let's tell the story about Clue.
Oh,
One
we
more
gotta-
story we gotta.
You tell the story.
There's a story.
Yeah,
It actually involves a Sega Genesis one, but once again, the same person.
but it was the same game for Super Nintendo.
You tell the story.
Spencer and I were playing Clue. This must have been about 10 years ago, and we were really into this one game of Clue, and we were playing it, and this game lasted at least an hour, which is a long time for
I
a
think
game
I should
on Super
describe
Nintendo.
how my Sega Genesis works first. My Sega Genesis, the cord started to wear out over
Oh, yeah, it
time.
was
So
an
what I
old
had to
system.
do is I would shove it against the back of like the wall, and I would hold the cord in so that the power wouldn't go out. But if you pulled
Yeah.
the controller too hard, then the power went out.
Yeah,
So continue.
and I just remember we were playing this game, and finally Spencer and I realized who it was. We were playing on like the hard mode of the game. Finally, we get to the very end, and we go, "Ah, "It must be Miss Scarlet." And literally,
game
right
comes
when
out
I say
right
that,
there.
right, Miss Scarlet. Like, you have found it was me. You cannot beat this game. You are evil. Yeah, that was weird.
Well, right here we're at just about the hour mark, so I'm gonna wrap it up. And we're gonna have a part 2 where we go into N64. I kind of knew that Super
We're-
Nintendo would take our time up.
Where I can actually just go in and actually say a little bit more than, oh, that's cool. Didn't play it. You know.
So turn in next time for this part 2 of all 3 of us talking about classic Nintendo, and we'll be talking about N64. My name is Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And I'm Cisco Garcia.
See you later.